Hey guys, welcome into the Bear With Us podcast. I am Jack. He is Frank. As always, we are coming at you on a Tuesday. I don't know why I'm specific. I've never specified the date ever. But today I just felt.
One of the podcasts that I listen to do that, and they release it. Then I don't know if they do it on purpose. They'll say we're recording on this day, and then they always release it the next day. I'm like, why? Why are you doing this?
Yeah. Why am I doing this, Frank? I genuinely don't know. It's been a minute since our listeners have heard from us, and I would hope, Frank, that no one was shocked that we did not do an emergency or not even emergency, just a reaction podcast to the. Man, I listened to some of the shows that, you know, as I normally do, just for fun, just to see kind of what they were talking. And man, it was so boring. It was such a boring thing because those are people who are paid to do that, right? They're paid by advertise. I love to be paid by advertisers to make those types of things, but I called Frank about 30 minutes before kickoff, and I was like this close to not really even watching the game in full because I saw the Nathan Peterman news. You know, Trevor Siemian hurts his oblique in warm-ups, and I'm like, oh my God, it's Nathan Peterman. And then I saw on Twitter, people were like, oh, it's Trevor Siemian. He's going. And I was like, okay, all right. Well, at least this will be a little more watchable. And Frank, I gotta be honest, the first quarter was pretty fun. I enjoyed myself quite a bit. People were texting, oh, what if the Bears actually win this game? You know, this and that. And then and things sort of derailed from there. Frank, is there anything to really talk about from that game other than the big news, the big news that we will obviously cover?
Yeah.
Want to give that a couple days before we still really, figure out what's going on. And I'm referring to injuries, of course. We'll talk about that in a second. But just specifically, what were some key takeaways, if any, really?
It was tough to have, too many. First takeaway is, Trevor Siemian is a competent quarterback. That's the type of guy that I would like to be with Justin for quite some time. Like Trevor, he's not Geno Smith, right? Like he's not going to go anywhere and like have a resurgence and become a starter. To me, that's the type of guy that I want with Justin because it was very clear he knew the offense. Like, not to compare the two by any means because anyone, and I highly doubt we're going to touch too much on this because if you think he's the guy over Justin, just stop watching football like right now. But you can sort of see that the processor that we've talked about with Justin of like making these quicker decisions, he had that. Just because he knows the offense, he's had these reps, like he's a very experienced guy. So you want someone like that behind Justin who has all the ability, right? To help him along in that process. So that was, all I needed to see was the first quarter. And I was like, this is a fucking backup quarterback. Like we need him again next year. Even honestly, if it's like a third string type, like damn near quarterback coach type of guy. Because the other thought that I did have with that, which is a little contradictory to what I just said, was like, it is unfortunate that our backup isn't more like Justin Fields in terms of athleticism. Because you look at what they do in Baltimore last year when Lamar Jackson went down with Huntley. I forget his first name.
Tyler Snoop Huntley, baby.
Yeah, Tyler Huntley. He came in and he was not Lamar by any means. Yeah, right. He did beat shit out of us. But he was
like Tyrod Taylor. He was like Tyrod.
But you can do very similar things with him that you can with Lamar versus like they couldn't install a whole new offense for Siemian. So like the quick passing game was okay, but this is the biggest take. That leads me to my biggest takeaway was everyone's like, oh, well, Justin holds the ball and he plays hero ball or whatever sort of narrative you want with that. Cause he does hold the ball a little bit longer, but I think in the offseason, we'll dive more into the whys of that because I don't always think it's just because he wants the home run ball, right? But just for the blanket statement, he does hold the ball longer than most. He may still be like dead last in release time. But so was Deshaun Watson in those awesome years, and Russ when he was playing well. I don't want to dive too deep. You get what I'm saying? But I was trying to find. I thought I sent you the tweet, and I can't find it. The pressure rate on Trevor Siemian was still just as high as it was with Justin Fields.
Yep.
And he got sacked just as much as Justin Fields. Like outside of maybe the first few games where Justin looked uneasy in the pocket and he looked like he didn't necessarily always know what he was seeing out there, or he just he couldn't recognize pressure. he hasn't ran into sacks. He hasn't held the ball long where it's been people aren't open or, people aren't getting separation or just whatever. And the guy who has a really quick release, he's a good backup quarterback, knows what he's doing. He had the same amount of pressure. So like my biggest takeaway was, one, the surrounding cast around the quarterback, no matter who it is bad.
Yeah.
Is really bad. But then two, it's like, how the fuck can you look at this game, see the surrounding cast around Trevor Siemian, and have anything negative to say about Justin Fields? This guy has put up 30 a game for the last 5 or 6 weeks with this
same players
around him, with the same players, with the same offensive line. Obviously minus running, but he had Justin Herbert or Justin. I keep calling it Khalil Herbert for a couple of those games, but like, dude, he is making chicken salad out of chicken shit, man. Like, and again, but what I don't like is I say this in group chats and things, and it's like, well, Justin has to improve on this, and that's not what I'm saying. I'm on record saying what Justin needs to improve on, and he's already started to improve on those things. He's not perfect. But look at what he has done. I'm not saying about anything about his perfections or imperfections. I'm just simply stating, look at what he's done with this surrounding cast, and look at what the next guy did. Yeah. So it's like even if people's angle is like, oh, well, like we're going to have to move on from Justin, he isn't the guy. Unless you get Patrick Mahomes or like the elite of the elite, who else can do what he's doing with this offense?
Right. And I think there were some things that I think we can kind of glean from this game offensively, especially. Number one, any concerns that Bears fans had that Luke Getsy would be gone and given an opportunity to become a head coach, at this point, I would be absolutely shocked if Luke Getsy was offered a head coaching position, because I think it's very clear that this offense isn't he's not Kyle Shanahan. He's not even Mike McDaniels. Like, he's not a guy who's going to come into your team and just establish an offensive identity. Because I think the Bears by far have an identity much more so than anything we had the last, since Trestman probably we knew what we were. I think he's established an identity here, but to me, he's not gonna he's not gonna go into Denver and fix Russell Wilson and that Broncos offense, right? Like, I don't think Luke Getsy is capable of doing that at this time. So I think he'll be here next year, which is good. And I really hope Justin Fields watched a lot of what Trevor Siemian did and sort of realized that he can give his guys a chance to make some plays.
Yep.
Because Chase Claypool made some really, really fantastic catches. Obviously the deep ball one, and then they sort of stopped going to him, which fine. It's backup quarterback who is in a terrible pocket. The offensive line, I thought, played a little bit better in the run game. Tevin Jenkins, he's your right guard starter for the future, right? I don't know how you could question that literally at all.
Jack, unless there's some generational talent at guard in the third round, that will make me lose faith in this regime, because they've already put this kid through the ringer for whatever reason. We don't know the reason, so maybe they're legitimate.
Right.
But he is so fucking talented, dude. How he can't not be your starting right guard next year.
He's not a weakness. He's not an area.
He's the best offensive lineman that we have. I'll take that a step further. He's the best offensive lineman that we have.
Yeah, I thought he played really, really well. Larry Borum at right tackle, man. That's just not. It's just not.
That's unfortunate, isn't it? And I feel like that's the way I feel about the defense. We came in thinking this can be a top 15 defense. So it's not to say we ever thought they could be world beaters. It was 15-18 felt about right going into
serviceable
the year with Roquan and Robert Quinn. Let's throw that caveat out there.
When we thought Robert Quinn could at least produce, not what he did last year. I think you and I both kind of realized that was probably unrealistic, but at least half of what he gave. He wasn't even giving you half. He was giving you a quarter, maybe.
But to be honest, honestly, just his presence clearly helped, because as soon as he got traded, Travis Gibson and Dominique Robinson have ghosted, and it's not necessarily their fault. They're actually being planned for now, and it's never been the case.
Right.
But I say that to say that's been part of the disappointment of the season. Is guys taking steps back. Like that hurts your rebuild a little bit more because like cornerback still shouldn't be a position of need. But Jalen Johnson, although he had a pretty good game, better game than the rest of the season. But Kyler Gordon stinks when he's played. Larry Borum has taken a huge step back. He's a guy last year that he was our Braxton Jones last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, and it is really disappointing because I think, at the beginning of the year, our expectations were not even really expectations, but I think you and I thought this could be, an 8, maybe 9 win football team if everything went well, if everything worked out well, because we didn't think the Bears were losing all that much in Khalil Mack, more so than a lot of other people did. I really don't think they would have been much better with Khalil Mack. I think the Chargers are kind of seeing that too. And we thought the wide receiver group would be a lot better than they have been as well. And that just hasn't really translated. Byron Pringle finally makes a play 12 weeks into the season in this first touchdown, which was it was a great catch. It was a terrible throw by Trevor Siemian. He threw it in a horrible spot, and Byron Pringle made a play. So that's kind of what I'm talking about. Like, I hope Justin saw that, and because an aspect to his game that could definitely still improve on is the deep passing game and just taking shots. Just because what he does is he tends to overthrow. And I think he's doing that because he just wants to eliminate any possibility of turning the ball over, which isn't a bad thing. But that's kind of like what Byron Pringle and Chase Claypool have been sort of known for in their careers, is they'll make plays. So you got to be willing to give them that opportunity to do so. So I really hope that. I'm sorry. No. It's fine. I was just going to say, I really hope that that's something that kind of carries over for Justin when he eventually does return this season, if he does at all.
I totally agree. I think that's the area of growth, whether it's like trusting them to make a play or recognizing like NFL open. That's not consistent yet, but that's normal for a young quarterback. A lot of the times they have to see them open, and then it winds up being too late, so you make a mistake. It's just a speed of the game adjustment, and he's adjusted elsewhere, so I have no reason to think that's not something he's going to get better at. But the weird thing, though, and I was saying this in a text, and I don't mean for it to come off as an excuse. It's just me sort of pondering the whys of things. He did that last year. He was throwing guys open last year, if you remember, and we were like so impressed. We were like, dude, this is a rookie, like trusting guys. Was it like the Ryan Griffin touchdown? It was a tight end or Hornstead?
I think it was JP Holtz, maybe, or was it Hornstead?
It was one of them. It was one of the tight ends, and I distinctly remember it was like his second or third game where you're like, that's not even NFL open, but he threw it like right behind a linebacker's ear, and the tight end caught it, and we're like, that is a phenomenal trait for him to have. And he did it a few more times again last year. I don't know if he's being coached to just like, hey, don't take those chances because the defense can't get stops if you turn. I don't know what the reasoning would be, but like, it almost feels like it's, for this year anyway, been coached out of him because we saw him do that last year.
Yeah.
But I will say, with all that, the closed window throws or the short window throws, small window, if you will, he's gotten better with that because he had a few of them last week. That Cole Kmet throw and the Montgomery throw that was right in the fucking breadbasket. Like he's starting to make those marginal improvements. So that's why I hope he does play again. Those are the things like only reps will get you better at. So I hope he does. But yeah, in terms of takeaways on the defense, Jack Sanborn continues to be impressive. And I think people are getting too far ahead of themselves with like, well, he's the future. Again, even if he's only a plug-in for next year, I don't think people realize how much of a win that is. I would love for him to, wind up being the next Urlacher or whoever, Singletary, like be whoever the fuck you want, be as great as you can. But the fact that that's not a hole right now with all the other holes is a huge win. And I hope he continues to play well this year.
Yeah, you can just play. You can play him next year. Again, he's not a weakness on your team, and that's sort of at this point what you're looking for in terms of how you're gonna, how Ryan Poles is gonna sort of build this thing. I think right tackle is a very clear weakness at this point. I thought Riley Reif was okay, but that's what he is. He's just a stopgap guy. So if you want to build that offensive line, right tackle. Obviously there's options in free agency. We've talked about Mike McGlinchey. We've talked about Jack Conklin as potential options. So there's things you can do. Center, Lucas Patrick, like I thought he played well when he was healthy, but he hasn't played it all this year. So like that's to me a huge need. If you could just get a center for the future, just have him and Justin Fields build that chemistry, that would be great. Running back, definitely not a need. I still think wide receiver is a need, Frank.
It is.
I was surprised by how confused the wide receivers looked on Sunday. Like Dante Pettis had no clue where he was going. And again, with a very shortened depth chart, Velus Jones nowhere to be seen in the offense other than the jet sweep stuff. So like I just don't understand their usage with him. So I still think wide receiver is a need. Defensive end, pass rush. I mean, good God. Listen, Frank, I know people were excited about Mike White, right, on Twitter. And, I think he won like the FedEx passer of the week or whatever it was. And like, clearly no one was watching the game because the Bears defense did nothing. No resistance, no pass rush, no, like the corners that were out there. I do not need to see a single more snap of Jalen Jones. The dude he is horrible.
He makes Kendall Vildor look good.
He does. He made Vildor look like a solid NFL player. I'm like, dude, get this guy out of here. He's terrible. Bad. And obviously, I think we've gone long enough without touching on the injuries here. Eddie Jackson, Liz Frank foot injury, which is usually a total year. Which means he could very well miss almost all of next year, which isn't great. And then Darnell Mooney out for the year with an ankle injury he got rolled up on, so his season is over. Two big losses, honestly, in terms of just snaps, time to play for Darnell Mooney. I'd say more so than for Eddie Jackson, but you lose another leader on your defense. And Eddie was playing, I thought, pretty well this year. A nice bounce back season for him.
Yeah.
Compared to what we thought could happen. So
if you had to rank the defensive players, Jackson's one or two, right? I think Justin Jones, maybe? Right, has played well. Sanborn has played well. Brisker has played. I think he's played better than probably all those guys, if not maybe a tad less than Justin Jones. I mean, like you said, he's 1A, 1B. Like he's been, one of the best defenders on the team this year. So that hurts.
And he's a captain too.
And he's a captain
of your defense. You've already lost your other two captains at the beginning of the season.
I mean, but that, his injury goes into, again, we said this maybe 4 weeks ago, and I stand by it. Maybe at this point it's not saying much, but I think there's more holes on this defense than there is this offense.
Yeah.
You're hoping with the season he's putting together, you just plug him in again because he's already under contract. Maybe, you look at the cap, maybe he's a tad bit overpaid at that point, but still that's someone you can plug in that's going to perform. And the fact that he's going to miss a good amount, you're going to have to address that in free agency or the draft, and that's a hole that you didn't want to have to fill.
Right, and I think the thing that sucks the most probably is that there's no one, because of the limited draft capital that Ryan Poles had and no money to work with either, there's no one on this team right now that like I'm looking for to step up, because I think if they were going to at this point, they would have. Like everyone's kind of proven sort of who they are, and really like you could argue that there's maybe 10 players that have guaranteed themselves to be carryovers to next season.
I know.
Maybe 10.
But Jack, I mean, that was why. And it's a little bit unfair to Poles because it's his first offseason. It's the first time GM. It's tough. You're not going to knock every draft pick out of the ballpark.
Right.
But you have your first 3 picks, 2 of them, if they weren't your second and third round pick, you probably would cut. I mean, like, imagine this was year 4 for them. Or if you just like isolated this team, it was like a redraft in fantasy. And you restart, you would not be redrafting those fucking guys. Like,
yeah,
you know what I mean? And that's
the weird thing, Frank. Like he didn't draft a lot of guys with high upside, right? Like he drafted guys, it seems like, with like maybe lower or higher floors. I would argue that Kyler Gordon's ceiling is probably pretty high. Jaquan Brisker, pretty high, I'd say. Velus Jones, he was more of just he is what he is at this point. We think he can help our offense. I mean, so far that has just not happened. And I mean, it's weird to me that Dante Pettis is still your punt returner. Like at this point, if Velus Jones fumbles on a punt return, like, big deal. Like, really, like, who cares at this point? Like, let him get work in at the position instead of just having him stand there at the kickoff returns and then coming in for a couple plays to run some jet sweeps. Like, I don't agree with how they're handling that. And it's not even that he's a bad player. We don't. This was our issue for the last few years too. Like, just let us see if they're good or bad. Like, give them the opportunity. Why are we still seeing Dante Pettis at this point in the season? He's not going to do anything for you in the future. He's not going to be around when this team is good. So why aren't we giving more? But on the flip side, they don't have a lot of guys to try and give those opportunities to. I mean, Treston Ebner did he even play? Was he hurt? Was he hurt?
No, I don't think so. But Darrington Evans is his last name, right? Right. Evans?
Yeah.
He looked, I mean, way better than Treston.
What is going on with David Montgomery? Why is he so slow?
He looks, doesn't he? I said this when I did a solo reaction pod a couple weeks ago. He looks weird, dude. I can't quite put my finger on it, but
he looks like he's running in quicksand.
He does. There were times even this game, Jack, where like he makes the patented cutback, and I'm like, oh, this is going for 20, and he's not separating from anybody, and he gets 7 out of it. Yeah. And he's like fighting for 7 after the original cutback, like, evades 2 people. And yeah. I don't know. He's right. It would not shock me if it comes out that he's been playing with an injury this year.
And again, they went away from throwing him the football too. Again, after last week, they had started to kind of do it a little bit more. But this week, I don't know if it's just maybe Simeon wasn't comfortable doing it, which this offense just obviously did not look the same without Justin Fields. So kind of makes me a little bit nervous, in terms of Luke Getsy and his ability to kind of scheme for things, because you kind of go back to what this offense has been doing successfully. And it's like, okay, how much of it is random to the point where it's like, how much is Justin Fields making happen versus how much is Luke Getsy able to scheme things open? And not for nothing, we did see some really good play calls, I thought. But again, he does this weird thing where he'll either run the ball on first down or he'll throw on first down. And then he always follows that up with a run on second down. And it was like for a 2 or 3 yard gain. I'm like, dude, get a little creative here.
Yeah, I agree. It's also tough though, man. And it becomes like a chicken and the egg type of thing where it's like, is the play calling the way it is, or are we not like super impressed with him because of the talent around him? But then you say, well, if he has a talent, couldn't just an average play caller be better than, or look better than what they are? So I don't want it to be that, but I feel the same way that when we're talking about like the things that Justin Fields needs to improve on, where it's like one of the things that you said was like he needs to trust his guys. And while I agree on the surface, part of me is like, they haven't given him a reason to trust him. Like if you really don't think your guy can make that play, are you going to make the throw? Like it's easy for us to say, because I again, it's not me like completely disagreeing with you, but then it's like on the flip side of it, when you search for a why, there's a legitimate why there. Darnell Mooney doesn't make those plays. Chase Claypool can, and anyone who was like, well, we're unlocking Claypool now. This is the first time he's played over 30% of the reps. I don't want to fucking hear that. Like until he has that type of usage with Justin in the game, then we can talk. But I feel the same way about Luke Getsy, where I'm like, we have seen him like I'm thinking of the touchdown throw to Darnell Mooney a couple of weeks ago. That was a fucking phenomenal play call. There was a pick. There was not a pick. I guess they call it a pick, a rub route. And he was wide open. I'm like, oh, that's phenomenal. And like the things that you're touching on with like the flow of the game, that certainly needs to be worked on and needs to get better at that. But I'm also like, how much can you really do with like Darnell Mooney as your one, Claypool, who doesn't know the playbook, and you sort of refuse to, just sort of draw something up in the dirt for him with his physical abilities. But it's like, that has to be tough. Like the only offensive mind that I can remember that like you probably couldn't name more than 3 receivers outside of Terrell Owens that was doing that. Was Andy Reid in Philly. He had like James Thrash for like 17 years.
That's, I think the one thing I would like to see Luke Getsy do a little bit more of at some point this season, because obviously there's nothing else in the season to really look for. I want to see him kind of spotlight guys. You think about, some of the things that Matt Nagy did well, and it was he kind of had like a specific game, like he'd have an Allen Robinson game where he didn't care what the defensive coverage was. It was, let's get the ball in the hands of Allen Robinson or, David Montgomery or something like that. So I would love to see him kind of spotlight Cole Kmet and have the offense run through him, especially when there's because it almost was like he was just running the offense as he normally would, just with Trevor Siemian playing quarterback. Like there didn't feel like any sort of difference. And I would like to see the offense maybe run through Chase Claypool a little bit more. Just get him involved, like short passes, quick things, easy completions. Like we ask for that a lot. And we haven't really seen that. We still see this offense kind of looks very basic, very surface level. He has some great play calls, like we've talked about. But there's still levels for this thing to grow. And it's hard to remember that this is his first. He's not even a full season in of calling plays. So it's something he can still grow into and maybe make a little bit easier for it. But it's just like, Cole Kmet walking away from that game with 3 catches. It's not good enough, in my opinion. Or Chase Claypool making some really great plays and then finishes with 2 catches for 57 yards. Like, I want to see him force the issue a little bit more to get his best play, his best weapons involved, because I just think that opens up a little bit more. And the rest of the guys, it is what it is. We're not going to see Dante Pettis probably next year. We're not going to see Byron Pringle back here in Chicago. I'd be surprised if they were. So you sort of just fill it out the rest of the way there. But now with Darnell Mooney out, not that he was having like his best season by any standards, but now guys are going to have to step up even more. And we've already been, it's already so thin. I just, that's kind of what I want to see offensively for the rest of the year.
Well, and that's, and I think that's my last point is what you said about Velus. You made it about the punt returns. I need to see him at receiver.
Or running back, like we've been.
Or running back, like wherever. Get him offensive reps, man. And again, it's not to say like, oh, he's better than Pettis right now, because as a route runner, Pettis is potentially the best route runner on the team. You just can't fucking catch. But like, to your point, these guys aren't going to be here. You're forced on, unless that would take some fucking balls if Ryan Poles cuts him next offseason. But even then, I feel like you didn't necessarily give him the greatest chance. And that's not to say he has even deserved it, but the season's so far gone that it's like, just reel him out there, dude. Get him out there. And that's what I mean. Like, and then you show everyone like, hey, this is what it was in practice too. We're over this fucking guy. Now you see it. And it's like, is that like a privileged fan type of take? It comes off that way, and it probably is. But I just don't want there to be that doubt where like he goes elsewhere and he performs better. And it's like, well, we didn't even give him that shot. We didn't try him in that position. We didn't have him in the slot. We weren't doing this. Like, so do it. So when he goes elsewhere and if he does better, you're like, well, something turned for him. A page turned. He got better. He worked on things. He wasn't that with us. You know what I mean? Like that's happened
Cordero
before.
Patterson 2.0.
Right.
Where it's like, how did we not use this guy like this at all? We couldn't even figure out how to get him involved. Yeah, make your life a little bit easier, right? You just show why he's not playing as opposed to just leaving it up to us to guess why he's not playing.
Yeah. Well, I guess the other way you can combat that is like just, and Poles doesn't seem, like he wouldn't do this, but he may just straight up tell us the day that Velus is cut, like he's just not this, and we haven't really had that very much in but
again,
managers.
It goes back to what we talked about. You brought it up. Even the most seasoned GMs are going to miss on draft picks every now and then. This is his first draft, and we talked. I brought this up a few weeks ago. I just want this to be a data point for him at this point. Like, why didn't it work out? Maybe everybody's concerns about him being a 25-year-old rookie, while they weren't necessarily like that's not something that they shouldn't have drafted him for. But I think it was a valid concern about if this guy doesn't pan out, there's not a lot of room for him to continue to grow. Like, he's already, is he going to be serviceable when this team is even good? Because Frank, like that, I think our biggest, not fear, but I guess concern at this point now is that this rebuild is probably going to be at the very least, a season longer than I think you and I originally thought it would, just because they don't have a lot. Like, nothing really panned out this year. Like, if you really think about it, what decision did Ryan Poles make this year that really panned out? I would say, God, you can't really even say Justin Jones because he was option B.
Yeah.
And you can't really give him credit. I would say probably number one is the coaching staff.
I agree.
I think record wise, you probably say the two best coaches were Kevin O'Connell and Mike McDaniel.
Yeah, but I mean, look at what they're working with, though. We would look like that too.
Correct. I'm just saying,
I get what you mean, though.
From the outside looking in, I think probably Chicago fans are probably more excited about the Bears staff than I think outside perspective would lead you to believe. I think they got that right because this Bears team has looked a lot more smart, right? A lot smarter, way more disciplined. I hope that continues. And they still try, even though the season is clearly over, he's still getting some guys to actually play hard. But I mean, personnel-wise, maybe Jaquan Brisker.
Brisker's been good. Braxton Jones has been good.
Braxton Jones.
Yeah. But to your Velus point, I think the other thing when you talk about data points, I almost feel like you made that draft pick thinking that Darnell Mooney was better than what he was, and we never thought he was a number one anyway. We came into this year like, you got to prove that to us.
Right.
And he hasn't. So let's just say in your mind as a GM, you feel this way. You feel like this is your number one receiver. What can complement that? If Darnell, because he's, what is Darnell Mooney's like a poor man Slim Reaper, right? He's like that Devontae Smith mold, but he's just not nearly as good.
Yeah.
But if you have Devontae Smith on your team as your number one, you have someone who does these crossing patterns and is a yak type of guy. That's a good complementary piece. So I guess what I'm saying is you have to evaluate it on both ends. One, why didn't it work? And two, did you make this because you thought Darnell was something that he wasn't?
It's just, the pick overall is just weird to me in general. I mean, really, with hindsight, looking back, like his age, because again, the age thing, while I don't think it makes him a worse player to be older, you wonder really, like, is he, how old is he going to be when we're competitive? And to me, Ryan Poles, I think thought this team was going to be a little bit better than they were. And granted, they did trade away two of their best defensive players, which obviously impacted the defense. Like, this defense was not bad in the first portion of the season. And then as soon as those trades happened, everything sort of just fell apart. Which again isn't the worst thing, because right now, I don't know if you've looked at the standings, listeners, Bears have the number 2 pick right now. And I got to be honest, Frank, I did not think there was a world where the Bears would have a top 3 pick, let alone top 2. So
yeah,
I'm as frustrated as we can be about sort of how long this rebuild may take. He's setting them up in a position where he could get them on the right track quicker.
Which it's going to be really interesting this offseason to see what his strategy is in building this team. He's already gone on record and said, you overpay for free agents is what you do. You have to. We're really not in any position to do that, at least in more than 1 or 2 positions, even though we have that cap space, but we just have so many holes that, like, are you going to commit that much to one player? But the one thing that we liked about Ryan Pace's tenure here was he would sign a lot of guys on 1-year deals, especially early in the rebuild, to see if they fit, see if they're good. Akeem Hicks was one of those guys, and he wound up being a foundational piece to this, to the success that he had in that tenure. But goddamn, it feels like that should have been this offseason, because that's exactly what Ryan Poles did. I mean, it's not like groundbreaking shit. All GMs do that. When you first come in, you're going to sign a bunch of guys on cheap deals because no one wants to play for you anyway. Like, you're getting the guys. But like, if Nick Morrow was a little bit better, if I'm the other linebacker that we signed,
Matt Adams,
if he's a little bit better,
Muhammad, right?
We were excited we signed a lot of these guys who just aren't going to be that. Pringle is another one. Yeah. Equanimous St. Brown, another one. Like, we sign a lot of these 1-year deals that you're hoping like just one of them hit, one or two. And that's like that expedites, a lot, but you can't even bring these guys back in another 1-year deal. How the hell can you resign the guys that we just named?
Yeah.
So it's like that's what's going to annoy me about the offseason is like, I do think we'll make a splash or two because we have so much cap space. Granted, I think it's like $60 million can roll over. So I don't think he's going to like force anything, but if a right tackle hits the market, I think you have to take a look at that. Or even if a left tackle hits the market, like Braxton Jones has been good, but if you get a Hall of Fame type of guy or all pro type of guy, you have to do that. Right. So I think
like
we'll
Trent
make a
Williams,
splash.
If Trent Williams,
right.
Trent Williams.
Right. That's what I mean. But it's like outside of that, it's going to be a bunch of 1-year deals again. Right. And then you're, but again, that's, and I hate, because we said like, we're open to be proven wrong. Those second round picks, dude, we needed Kyler Gordon to be the shutdown
Sauce Gardner.
Yeah. But then we also, or if he wasn't that, we need him to be a really good number 2, and our number 1 doesn't seem to be really a number 1. So like that whole situation is just bad.
We thought that secondary was locked in, right? We thought secondary taken care of. We got all 4 starters. Don't have to worry about it.
But then Jack, but then the thing with that is not only are they not locked in, now you've deprived the other side of the ball of something that it greatly needs.
Right.
Because as much as I didn't mind the Claypool trade, I think George Pickens is a better receiver than him. Right? I mean, it's just call it what it is. So it's like, it's not like because there's going to be people who say, well, you can still do both. I mean, you can later now, but this isn't a hindsight thing for us. We were pissed that we didn't get Alec Pierce or George Pickens, with George Pickens probably being the number 1, of the 2 on our list. But I would have gladly, both of them fell into our lap twice. They were both there twice. And he went 2 positions that you and I just disagreed with as well. Well, that's the other thing. Well, maybe not corner. We did say we expected a corner to be taken as the corner, but the thing is like, for as bad as Kyler Gordon has been, if you did not address that in the second round, what difference does it make? We just throwing fucking Jalen Jones out there and we had the same results. So we wasted second round capital to, like that's the annoying thing is like if these guys were shut down and Brisker's been good, but I just still don't think you draft a safety that early, but it is what it is. He's been good. But it's like, if you're not solving that problem with that draft capital, you've only caused more problems.
Yeah, I feel like we have more room to be more pessimistic about Ryan. It's tough, right? It's Ryan Poles' first draft, but it's almost like he had to hit it because now the clock is sped up with Justin Fields. Because now you can't wait. You're almost wasting his rookie contract now because you need that. That's how teams win, right? Like they build complementary rosters around quarterbacks on cheaper deals. Like that's a great way to build a team. And now it's like, the biggest question was, I mean, you and I thought that Justin Fields could be the guy. I think, last week, it's frustrating, right? Because last week we talked about how the season is an overwhelming success simply based off of that. But now that we've seen this team without Justin Fields, I think you really realize, like, oh, shit, like he can make up for a lot. Let's not get it twisted. But there is just it just feels like this season was just such a waste of time, and it's really unfortunate because it's really not all Ryan Poles' fault. Like let's be real about that. Like the former GM of this team left this team in rough fucking shape. They didn't even have a first round fucking pick. But Ryan Poles can't just skate by being like, well, I was in, well, what else was I supposed to do? It's like, man, like your player evaluation leaves a lot of question marks. Like he better hope that this next upcoming draft, he better fucking hope he nails it. And not, I'm not saying it needs to be grand slam pick after pick after pick, but like, what is he going to do with this first round pick? If they finish second, if they have the second overall pick, that opens up a ton of opportunities because you have teams like the Panthers right now at number 5. You have the Packers at number 8. Granted, who knows what they're going to do, but you have teams that could potentially be looking at CJ Stroud and saying, I want that fucking guy. I want that quarterback. And you look at what the Dolphins were able to do. They had Tua in place. What did they do? They drafted Waddle. They traded that extra capital for Tyreek Hill. They got playmakers around him. Or if you're Ryan Poles, you say, you know what? We need blue chip players on this team. I want the best pass rusher. I want the best left tackle. You stay at 2. But if you stay at 2, better fucking hope that you draft a really goddamn good player.
Yeah. Well, the trade, I would be okay with both. I understand the trade back scenario to just acquire more, but Will Anderson, it's not a reach at number 2.
No,
he wouldn't be a fucking reach at number 1. Like
he's could go 1 if Bryce Young wasn't there.
That's right. That's what I mean. Or if this was like a Jaguar scenario where no one wants to trade back with them, they pick who they want at number 1. Like, you know, if you already have your quarterback.
If it was the quarterback class of last year, Will Anderson would be number 1.
Oh, easily.
They wouldn't, and the Texans wouldn't look back. They'd be like, okay, we'll find a quarterback elsewhere.
And yeah, I mean, it's just so I'm okay with either scenario. My only worry going into the offseason, and this is going to be a hindsight thing, so I want to preface that it's because he tried to get ahead of the market. He looked at the free agent class and said, I do not like what I see at receiver. We need to make a move now. So you paid a pretty high second for Chase Claypool. I think he has the talent to warrant a second round pick. He's a very talented guy. We're going to have to see what he looks like with the full off season and everything. Like anything this year is probably a plus. But I would be goddamn, Jack, if we have that pick is the second pick in the second round, then we have the ability to trade back in the first, and we get to this fifth, or the 5th overall pick or sixth overall pick, and you're accruing this level, and then now someone like DJ Moore is on the market, or now someone like whoever. The last few off seasons, there's been disgruntled players, left tackles, right tackle. I mean, there's been, it's not just been receiver, and it's like that's another piece that we could have had. So obviously, the two ways to just completely alleviate that is that Chase Claypool winds up being just as good as we thought he was his rookie year, right? Because we can make a million excuses for the years after that, the second and third year. Totally get it. Or we get another receiver in the draft that is a stud as well, and we just sort of move on beyond that. But yeah, I mean, this would be an important draft for Poles, man. I'm not out on him by any stretch of the imagination.
No, me neither.
I think the reason these conversations are coming up so early now is because the season's over. So It's like, how much more player evaluation, can we do, especially when Justin Fields isn't playing? When he's playing, there's going to still be a lot to evaluate for him because there are things he needs to get better at. But when he's out, it's like, what the fuck are we going to talk about for 50 minutes? You know what I mean?
Well, I can tell you what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about Bears-Packers. We can do our Week 13 picks here, and then we'll kind of get to that. There's still obviously a ton of question marks for the game in terms of statuses, so we'll talk through that. But yeah, I mean, the loss. We didn't even talk about the final score because it literally didn't matter. That Jets game is what it is. Frank, I want to say one thing, and then we'll get to our picks about the Jets in particular. They are such a fascinating team to me because they're in this they're almost like the 49ers, if you think about it. They have this rookie quarterback that they paid a premium price to get. But not a rookie quarterback, it's a young quarterback, excuse me. And it's almost like both teams are in a situation where they're like, how do you justify playing this young quarterback with the team's structure as that? Like, you watch Garrett Wilson I mean, just explode. And granted, the Bears secondary is horrible. The defense overall is terrible. But you look at how he was playing. You look at a guy like Elijah Moore, who had requested a trade, catching his first touchdown. You just look at how excited he was. How do you fucking go back to Zach Wilson?
You can't. I legitimately, I think his time is done in New York. It has to be.
What else do you do? Because, I mean, like, you talked about it. I think we were actually on the phone right before the game, and you had said, I mean, would be the most ideal bounce back scenario for Zach Wilson against this Bears defense because they're terrible. But, like, do you really think Zach Wilson would have done what Mike White did?
Maybe not exactly. I think he would have obviously looked more competent than he had against the Patriots. But that's for me, like, at this point is besides the point. And that's why I say, like, he just has to he's done there. Because that's how far you've lost this locker room. Not only with your play. Think about, the below average or even bad games that Mitch had. And this defense, like, we got his back. It's because he wasn't a fucking jerk off. Like, Zach Wilson is a little spoiled cunt running around. No, I know, with no accountability. Did you feel like let the defense down? No, that reporter wasn't trying to bait you into doing anything.
He was trying to give you an out.
He was trying to give you an out. That was a fucking alley-oop, dude. Yes, dude, Mitch would have like solid games and he'd be like, well, I got to be better. There's just things I got to work on. And it became robotic after a little while, but you're like, hey, you can at least respect that. Where it's
there's
like,
a reason people still like Mitch in Chicago.
Exactly, because he's not a fucking dickhead. This kid is like, I get it. Your ego comes into play when you're elite at something. These are the top 0.01% of people who've ever touched a helmet. But you have to read the room.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dude, there's no way you can objectively look at his performances, or like if you're him, look in the mirror and say, I've been playing well. Maybe there are some excuses you can come up with. But if you don't have the ability to objectively look at yourself and say, I've been playing poor, and when it's been this bad, I mean, that's what people's issue with Russell Wilson has been, is that it's it's a little bit different because for him, it's more of like that toxic positivity where it's like he never shows anger. It's just like, yeah, get him next game. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up and be angry with me for a minute, right? Like
the defensive lineman screaming at him after that.
But with Zach, it was just like a complete lack of accountability.
Right.
And I mean, again, that we were on the phone and I hadn't realized it until it was either a Twitter thread or a Reddit thread where they were bringing up like things that were happening in the off season in training camp and such, where like players were making these comments and I had not paid attention to it. It's just about like Joe Flacco is better and he throws a more catchable ball and even like some rumblings about like, the players around Zach Wilson after like week 1 or week 2 are like getting disgruntled because he's just not looking their way. He can't read things like they've been open. I mean, you can't. And again, it's not just for performance. I think if he were to go to the defense and say, hey, y'all, I've been sucking and I'm sorry, they would have been like, you have been, but we got your back. Like, let's roll. You're going to get better. We're going to get this going. But the fact that he didn't do that when it was literally, I mean, you're talking about an alley-oop. He was like flying above the rim and he just had to like poke the ball into the hole. Into the basket, and he just refused to do that. He swatted the fucking ball away, is what he did in this scenario. And that it just shows me how far gone he is. Yeah. Maybe not with the coaching staff. I think the coaching staff has recognized the disconnect between him and the rest of the team.
Yeah, I think they did him a favor by benching him, honestly. But at the same time, it's like the Jets are a win now team, and they have a developmental quarterback. Like the Bills were able to be bad with Josh Allen and sort of start building their team. The Bears are obviously in a same situation, but like, man, I would give my left foot if the Bears had the offensive talent that the Jets have.
Holy shit.
Man.
Could you imagine that?
But
that's the thing though, Jack, it comes full circle. Why are they a win now team? They don't have a bunch of veterans on that fucking team. Those are rookies balling.
Yeah.
Those are rookies and second-year players balling.
Because that's how you build a team in the NFL. Like, we could spend literally 3 hours talking about how bad of a strategy it was to draft a corner and a safety, regardless of how good you thought they could be. It's just not how you build a sustainable winner in the NFL right now. It just doesn't work. There's these insane athletes at the wide receiver position now. You can, like, it's crazy how many teams have hit on wide. You think about when you and I were growing up and like guys that were getting drafted in the first round, you never knew what, like, it could be Calvin Johnson, or it could be who, give me a name. Give literally any
John
name.
Ross.
John Ross. Perfect example. It could be John Ross. You have no clue. But now you draft Justin Jefferson. You draft Jamar Chase, who literally helps your team get to a fucking Super Bowl because he's that talented. Like, it is so frustrating watching George Pickens ascend, and you watch Kenny Pickett and how much he's grown these last couple weeks because he has these talented playmakers. Deontay Johnson is probably, I would argue, one of the most underrated wide receivers in football, right?
Agreed. Yep.
Yeah. But you look at what he's able to do against that Indianapolis Colts defense, and you look at the catches George Pickens is able to make, the separation he's able to get. And it's so frustrating that the Bears, again, seem to have missed a top-end guy because of just, in my opinion, this antiquated thought process where it's like, nah, you got to build the secondary. Again, we ranked the positions that we thought in terms of importance of building blocks, and corner and safety were so fucking low. I was on my honeymoon. I will never forget this. I'm watching the draft board, and I get a text from Frank, and it's just like we texted for what, like an hour about how just like frustrated we were. We didn't even care about the players, right? They could have been Jaquan Brisker and Kyler Gordon could turn into all pros. And I would still say it was probably a mistake to draft a corner and a safety in the second round when you could have got guys like this. It's just venting, yeah. Frank. I'm venting because it's just frustrating.
But I mean, but again, I don't want this. We were frustrated then, and we certainly weren't out on Ryan Poles after one draft, and we're not out on him. Yeah,
I'm not.
It's frustrating in the moment. But I feel like the internet hears things and it's just like, well, you fucking hate the guy. Like, you want to. No, that's not what we're saying. We could be frustrated and still, buy into what he has going. But that's what makes this upcoming draft that much more important. Because if you hit on a receiver or again, even if you just hit on them, but in order for those positions to be the positions of choice, we needed Sauce Gardner and we needed Troy Polamalu. Anything short of wasn't going to cut it because we need weapons on offense.
And he didn't do anything to really obviously he did now with Chase. With that trade, it really does bother me, Frank. Like in the moment, you get Chase Claypool, you're just excited, right? You're excited that you got a young receiver, a guy who is a proven NFL player. You're excited, right? The last few weeks, it's just like, how did the Ravens, or how did the Steelers get the Bears pick from that? How did you walk away from that trade being like, yeah, we'll give you our pick? Like, come on, man. Like, you got, because the Ravens pick, it's not going to be the end of the draft, right? I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl, but it's a lot better to have pick 34 than it is to have pick like 45 or whatever the Ravens end up being. Like, that's, yeah. That is frustrating. It's like is Ryan Poles is that his first trade? Or no, not his first trade, but is that his first trade to acquire a player? Right? That's his first trade to acquire a player.
Yeah. I can't think of another one.
So is it
we've traded away players to get draft capital?
But I have liked what he's traded away, even though I don't think he got as much as he maybe could have for Roquan. But again, off-ball linebacker, a guy in his contract year, it's a little bit tougher. Thought he got good value for Khalil Mack. So it's like there's been a lot of ups. There's been some ups, but there's been some downs. It's a first year. I'm not out on him. Let's make that clear.
Yep.
But let's get into these picks. We'll talk a little bit more about the Bears once we get to our Bears-Packers pick. Thursday night, Buffalo at New England. I'm going Buffalo.
I'm going Buffalo too. Isn't this Buffalo's like fucking fourth Thursday night game? What the fuck's going on here? I feel like they
played Thanksgiving and then didn't they play?
They've had another Thursday night game. I'm almost positive.
They might have. They might have. I don't know. But yeah, this will be a weird game. I think the Patriots are going with those red jerseys, which I mean, Mac Jones looked a little bit better, so we'll see if maybe he's picking it up. But I'm still going Buffalo. Tennessee at Philadelphia. I mean, Frank, you just have to feel foolish for believing in Tennessee. You really thought Tennessee would be something. You bought into the fucking hype, and you were wrong. I'm not doing that. I'm going Philly.
I'm going Philly. I'm going Philly as well because, yeah, I just think you think of like avenues to win. The Titans against elite teams is very slim. Like a lot has to go right. Yeah, I'm going Philly.
Like I said, we'll save Green Bay and Chicago for the end. Pittsburgh at Atlanta. I'm going Pittsburgh, man. They've been playing a lot better lately. Like I talked about earlier, Kenny Pickett has been playing much better, and I just don't trust Atlanta. They have no clue what they're doing. They're a dumb team. They're very dumb.
I don't trust Atlanta either. I'm going Philly, and I mean I'm sorry, I'm going Pittsburgh. It was so funny. I was watching that game yesterday, and I was just like, here's where it happens, right? Where they just reel off 4 or 5 wins, and Tomlin continues that streak of not going under 500 ever in his career. And he's such a fucking good coach, dude.
He is.
Although I love Mike Tomlin.
They made a lot of dumb. They're lucky the Colts are a bad team, or else they would have lost that game yesterday. They made some really stupid.
They're
decisions.
Lucky that Jim Irsay hired Jeff. Holy shit! I'm not gonna lie to you, Jack. When we get to this off-season content, I can't fucking wait. This is one of the more juicy off seasons that we've had to look forward to in quite some time.
I'm not,
because the Colts are going to be someone to keep an eye on.
You know, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, Frank. I would not be shocked at this point if Jeff Saturday is the head coach next year. Because Jim Irsay seems like the guy who just can't admit that he made a mistake. He's already cut the nuts off his GM, right?
Well, that's what I was going to say. So do you keep Ballard? That's what I mean. Even if they keep him, there's going to be drama.
If he was going to fire him, he would have done it when he fired Reich. They're just going to go out and get Derek Carr. That's what they're going to do. They're going to rerun another quarterback.
They can't. I mean, how?
But come on, doesn't that just seem like the perfect fit?
It does. It does, but I hope someone like the Jets get like a Derek Carr.
Nah, they're going Jimmy G. We've already
or Jimmy G. Someone. I want them to get a competent quarterback because I think they would be much better.
I agree. Speaking of the Jets, they're in Minnesota this week. Obviously, Mike White will be starting. That being said, I still think Minnesota is a good team, so I'm going to go Minnesota. It's a noon game at home. This is like Kirk Cousins' prime time right now. I
hope the Jets fans got like too ahead of themselves with Mike White. I think he's a solid quarterback. They had every right to though. After Wilson,
Well, you know, Saleh loves him. You remember last year?
Yeah.
Talking about Mike White being the future of the position.
But what I mean is, I hope they don't take that as like, well, he can get us to the promised land. Because if you got that high, you had every right to be excited about that performance.
Sure.
That was great. Because just like you said earlier, Zach Wilson probably didn't have that. I think he has a solid game, but not that against the Bears defense. But this is a different fucking beast. You're going against, the Vikings defense isn't great, but you're going up against an offense that can put up points. Right. We didn't have Justin Fields, so we don't know what a shootout would have been like between Mike White and Justin Fields. But yeah, that can get ugly. I think I'm going Minnesota.
Jacksonville at Detroit. Every Bears fan was just cussing watching Trevor Lawrence have his game-winning drive. See, that's how you win a ball game. It was very entertaining. Trevor Lawrence is obviously picking up his play. God, Bears. Can we just have like Zay Jones? Because like even Zay Jones would be the best wide receiver. I know. I'm going Jacksonville in Detroit.
I don't know. That was one of the ones that I've gone back and forth on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go Detroit. It wouldn't shock me if either team won though. But yeah, no, it's been. I'm really rooting for Trevor Lawrence. I really am because the league needs more good young quarterbacks.
We're running out.
I know.
We're entering this weird phase right now, Frank, where there's just like you look around, you're like, God damn, there's some old guys still running around. We got a guy that's 45 still playing. It's wild. Cleveland at Houston, which the NFL is just dying to get its hands on. I mean, I don't know how, in what universe you're picking Houston, other than you just want to do it despite Deshaun Watson. But come on, Cleveland is winning this game.
Yeah.
It's not going to be close. It's going to be bad.
The Texans are as bad as we thought.
Is Lovey going to get canned?
I don't think you can. They gave him a 5-year deal, and they just fired
David
Culley after 1 year. And again, it was so weird because we thought David Culley did I think he did a better coaching job last year than Lovey has this year.
I mean, Davis Mills looks like he regressed completely. Although I don't know what. Dude, that team is so broken.
With Lovey's track record of quarterbacks, I'm shocked that a quarterback has regressed under a Lovey Smith regime.
You're not wrong. We're both going Cleveland. Washington at the New York Giants. I'm going Washington. The Giants, like, we've talked about this. They're something just doesn't look quite. Daniel Jones has not gotten anywhere near the criticism I thought he would get. Because remember, the whole conversation was that Brian Daboll was going to walk right in those doors and Daniel Jones was going to be Eli Manning 2.0. He hasn't looked good at all. I mean, there's no way they don't move on from him in the offseason, right?
That's a tough situation to move off from. They've already won too much for it to be in the draft. So again, are they going to be one of those teams looking for just like more competence and be in like the run for Jimmy G or even Jacoby Brissett, like that type of quarterback that like the floor is very high, but the sort of the ceiling is the floor. I
will say the Bears have better receivers than the Giants.
That they do, especially with all the injuries that they have. I think I'm going Commanders. I mean, they played well.
Yeah.
They played. I mean, Riverboat Ride. That's the thing. I know the ceiling on his teams usually isn't all that high, but the floor is extremely high all the time. And he doesn't lose that locker room ever.
Brian Robinson, in my opinion, should win Comeback Player of the Year.
Is that possible?
For a first-year player, probably not.
Well, not even a first-year player. I'm just saying, like, the comeback being from this year. Like, he got shot this year.
That's what I'm saying. He should be. I don't. He's also a rookie.
That's a good idea. No, I'm not against it. I don't know if there's any like official rules to it. Because I mean, how the fuck can you?
Who did we think it was going to be?
Oh, there was
earlier this year.
There was a shoo-in, and now I'm blanking on who it was.
Who was it? We were like, oh, Saquon? Was it Saquon?
Oh, Saquon. Yeah, we did say Saquon. I think it was Saquon.
I say give it to Brian Robinson.
I mean, it's very similar to Alex Smith. Like, what happened was so catastrophic, and in the case of being shot, like that could have gone a million different ways. You know. Shout
out to their Sean Taylor Memorial, by the way.
Oh Jesus, that was awful. Yeah, but
was that a real team? They're a real NFL franchise.
I'm pulling for them to be sold really quick. Those fans don't deserve that type of shit. That's embarrassing, dude.
Yeah.
And not only the fans, forget the fans for this moment. And I don't mean it like that, but like Sean Taylor's family was there, dude.
They invited them out there.
Like, what the fuck? How do you look at that and say, yeah, this is,
with the jersey he never wore because it was the Nike jersey.
With the jersey he never wore, and it's not even a statue. It's like it was a fucking mannequin.
It's you go into the NFL store at your local mall, dude, and that's what you're.
Jack, I'm not gonna lie to you. If I was a family member of Sean Taylor, I would feel disrespected, like legitimately.
Yeah.
Because this is someone who liked Sean Taylor. That was disrespectful.
They keep fucking it up too, haven't they? They've done multiple things for Sean Taylor, and every time I feel like they've just fucked it up.
It's embarrassing, but I'm going Washington.
Yeah, it's bad. Denver at Baltimore. I mean, look, Baltimore has a lot of issues, Frank, but my God, Denver is just broken. I mean, that offense is just. I could not stop laughing at the defensive player just screaming at Russell Wilson on this, and he didn't say anything. He wasn't like you were talking about the toxic positivity where he's just like it's all good, like it's like dude, he didn't even look the guy in the eyes. I'm like, come on, man, I'm going Baltimore.
Yeah, I'm also I feel like I led the Russ hate train. I've disliked him for years. and I'm not saying he doesn't deserve some of this, especially from teammates who are sick of, I feel a little bit bad for him. But if you remember, Jack, my joke became like, the score was 17-14 and he threw for 250 and 4 touchdowns. That was just like, because it was just an ugly game. It was like he was a highlight reel, so his highlight tape looked good, but if you watched the full game, it looked fucking ugly. Like it always seemed out of sync a lot of the times in Seattle. But I certainly never thought he was this bad when you like took away the Pete Carroll recipe of the run and the play action. A lot like I never thought he was elite. I would even wager to say there were some years I didn't think he was like great. I thought he was maybe more good or like highly above average. You know what I mean? I never thought of, so like, not only like is the media really lashing at him and now his teammates are and former teammates, it makes me feel a tad bit bad for him, but it's warranted though with the way that he's performed and just sort of that robotic mannerism that he has to him.
I appreciate your empathy, but he's still cashing those checks. He'll be fine.
Oh no, for sure. And you know what? It's not even the media stuff. It was that clip in particular, and the reason why it clicked in my brain is because the way you described it, that's exactly the way that I saw it. Is that he got yelled at and he just like sort of froze and like looked forward. And I think like it made me like when I watched it made me remember that's how I felt when I was like getting screamed at by an adult. I was just like, you're just like, you know what I mean? And like, holy shit. Yeah, and like that was the part that made me feel bad for him because it's like whatever happens in a locker room happens in a locker room, but to see it on TV, it made me feel bad.
Like it's what everyone has been talking about, has been building up like that. Yeah, but see that's like we talked about, and every now and then I feel like we can give Matt Nagy a little bit of credit. That same thing could have happened 100 different times. And it never did.
Yeah.
The defense never went out of their way to say, listen, we've given up 6 touchdowns in 6 games. What the fuck and we've lost every single game. What the fuck's going on? That never happened. So credit to Matt Nagy there. Yeah. For he was always in charge of that locker room. And Nathaniel Hackett should be just as embarrassed by what's going on as Russell Wilson, honestly, because he has no clue what's going on. And you're right, like Pete Carroll's, we gave him a ton of shit, right? I thought he should have been fired 2 years ago, right? He clearly knew how to make Russell Wilson great, or at least, in some people's eyes and get the most out of him. And not having Javonte Williams has really, really hurt this team. But we also thought the receivers would be a lot better than they were. Jerry Jeudy did not. He looked a little bit better before he got hurt, but he didn't take that step. Cortland Sutton, I know he's your boy. He kind of had his typical season. Like nobody really elevated their play with Russell Wilson. But I'm assuming you're going Baltimore.
I'm going Baltimore. Okay.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see what happens with Lamar, right? Because like, do you tag him? Because that's going to be like, with Aaron Rodgers' deal, that's going to be a ton of fucking money.
But the Ravens, they just go through, and I don't know. I'm not connected in the way that we are to the Bears. So I don't know if it's Greg Roman or Harbaugh or what, but they go through these funks like this.
Yeah.
Where they look bad. That offense does not look good. Now Lamar last week, and he usually does even when they're looking bad, he makes timely plays. And he either flat out wins them the game or gets them in a position to win the game. But I understand why they're hesitant to pay him $200 million guaranteed. Because like there's these 6-7 games a year where it's like they look awful.
But see, it's weird because it's almost like they didn't give him any receivers to work with. Like the Bears may have better receivers than the Ravens do right now.
That's fair with the injuries, but Rashad Bateman is a fucking stud. It's not their fault he got hurt.
But they didn't know. I mean, you don't know what Rashad Bateman was even going to be. So they just didn't add like they could have. You know what I mean?
Fair. I mean, but the other thing, too, to keep in mind when you're thinking about receiver, I mean, Mark Andrews is their number one.
I don't know. He must be hurt or something. Because
he's been dealing with dealing with I don't know what it is.
And their run game is dead too.
They can't. Yeah, that's a big problem for them is that Lamar is the running game. Like they can't get their offensive line cannot block.
Would you say he's a running back, Frank?
No, he's a quarterback.
Good. A game that I think will be. I'm surprised this isn't in a primetime game, to be honest with you. Miami at San Francisco. This could be a really, really fun game.
Fucking good game.
Honestly. I'm going San Francisco. This was more of a toss-up for me.
Yeah.
This could be the best defense that Tua faces. I mean, fair. I'm going San Francisco. They just look like things are clicking there.
They are.
And man, listen, I know people point to the passer rating, the accuracy stuff. Like, I still don't see it with Tua, man. Like,
I know. But
he is a lot. I will give him credit. He is way more accurate than we've ever seen him be. But again, those receivers, man, are fucking wide open.
They're making they're wide open, or they're making the most fucking insane grab I've ever seen on a weekly basis. But the one place you have to give Tua credit for is just his willingness. I know these guys are super talented, so that willingness goes up, but he has the willingness to just sometimes let it rip and let them make a play.
Yeah.
And we've talked about that with Justin. Granted, we don't have those two guys, but that's one place we do want to see him improve. I'm going with the Dolphins, man. I know we have our limits or thoughts on Tua. I don't know if Jimmy G can keep up, dude. And it's not just a Tua thing; it's a full offense thing. And you're starting to see that backfield get injured. Elijah Mitchell just got hurt. CMC looks like he's dealing with something. Elijah Mitchell again. I don't know if Brandon Ayuk and the boys can deal with Reek and Jalen. I mean, dude, if they stay together for 5 or 6 years, Jack, that may be the best receiving duo I've ever seen in my lifetime. They are fucking that good. They're already just on paper, like talent-wise, the most explosive duo I have ever seen. I don't know if I can.
Reggie Wayne and Marvin Harrison, probably.
In terms of being dynamic, I think these two are more. But in terms of best, that would probably be the one that I would look to 100%.
Yeah, or maybe no, I'd take these two over Brandon Marshall and Alshon, even in in their primes. But I've been surprised by how not good Debo has looked since CMC's arrival. I'm curious. I don't know if they've figured out quite how to get him and the most out of him now that you have running back. Like, now that Elijah Mitchell is hurt, you kind of wonder if maybe Debo will play a little more running back.
I was actually texting one of our league mates, Coy, because at one of our trade deadlines, I had Debo on the table for me. I've never valued him. I feel like you're either in my boat or you're in the boat of like, he's a wide receiver one. It doesn't matter how he's getting the points, take him. Or my boat is like, I don't see that sort of value with him. Like, a lot of his touches are very manufactured. And when I look at a wide receiver that I would like to have on that team, it's Brandon Ayuk, because he's like a true receiver. And I told Coy, I was like, it feels like this is what Cordero Patterson could have been if the Vikings recognized what they had in him. He's not the great of a route runner. His hands aren't the best, but if you get the ball in his hands, he's going to make plays. But again, what are you trading for Cordero Patterson, even though he puts up really good numbers? A second in Dynasty? You know what I mean? Like, I'm not giving up anything crazy for him, because that sort of value, that's like a value discrepancy. And maybe it's a weird eye test thing, but I don't know. It's always been something with him for me.
Let me ask you a question. If you could get in your little time machine, go back to the beginning of the year, before the season started, during the offseason, before Brian Poles hired Matt Eberflus, do you because I mean, at week 3, 4, 5, somewhere in that range, we talked about how, Brian Daboll was our number one. Would you want Mike McDaniel as your head coach? What do you think he could do with this offense with Justin Fields? Would that excite you?
Personality wise, I fucking love him. He's hilarious. Yeah. I think he's building a good culture there. I don't think that's what this team at this point. I don't think you can do nearly the same amount of things as you can with that. And again, that's not to say he couldn't do that with lesser, but you're not talking about just lesser talent. You're talking about an A++ core of receivers and running backs versus like a fucking G League receiving core. Like that's a huge difference. It's tough to say. It really is, because like we're seeing the results that he has right now, and I don't know. It's like, let's just say for the sake of argument, he's really not building a culture there. It's not going to matter in the immediate because they're fucking winning. But in this case, you weren't going to win probably regardless. You need to build a culture. Does that make sense? I don't know. In my head, it makes sense. But,
but it's
like,
no. I was just making sure we're on the same page, because
it's tough.
I've seen a lot of Bears fans questioning what this team would look like, and it's tough. It's tough because you don't have the Bears have never had Tyreek Hill in their entire career, in their entire history.
Jalen Waddle.
They've never had Jalen Waddle. Yeah. He's probably better than Brandon Marshall.
No, Brandon Marshall was a dog. I just mean that type of explosiveness. Like Brandon Marshall was never explosive. He was a go up and get it.
Jalen Waddle has surprised me, because I really thought he was more of a volume guy. Nope.
He's a fucking dog.
He's one of the most explosive players in the league. So
but he even like Mike Gesicki's probably better than Cole Kmet. Maybe running back rooms are comparable, if not them better than us.
Gesicki is a Bear next year.
Tight end is maybe.
No, we got Ryan Griffin out here catching red zone target. God, that still pisses me off, Frank.
Yeah.
Anyways, Seattle at Rams. Rams are fucking dead. Seattle.
Yeah, Seattle. Come on, the Rams are fucking garbage.
Chargers at Raiders. Raiders got a huge win. But so did the Chargers. I'm gonna go Chargers.
Little 2-point conversion for the dub.
Yeah, I'm going Chargers. The balls, man. The balls we saw this week.
I know, it was 2 of them.
I wish Matt Eberflus. I don't know if Matt Eberflus has that in him. I don't know if he has that in him to go for those 2-point conversions that we saw.
You know what though, Jack? And this may be completely wrong. And I'm not trying to give him any sort of benefit of the doubt with it, but when you're building a culture like this, you don't want to just build a culture of like, well, fuck it, we've been losing. Sure. Let's just continue to lose. Sure. You got to show the guys that, hey, I'm still making the decision to win this fucking game. So I think we're going to see that if and when we're competing underneath.
You just go back to the Patriots game.
I get it. I get it. I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
Different scenario. Absolutely.
But it's not like Brandon Staley has had the nuts to do it in the past either. I think it's a little more out of desperation than anything, to be quite honest with you.
That's a good point.
So I'm going Chargers as well.
Kansas City at Cincinnati. Frank.
This is a fucking game.
Frank, I'm breaking the rule. I'm breaking the fucking rule. I'm going Cincy, baby.
Oh, man.
Joey B at home.
Joey B's a fucking dog.
Listen, the Chiefs, I feel like they're going to hit that point in the season, right, where it's like, all right, let's just get to the fucking playoffs. Like, let's wrap this thing up.
Maybe, yeah.
And, I mean, listen, they didn't have to do a whole lot last week against the Rams, but I don't know. I feel like this is one of those games where the Bengals need it more. And Joe Burrow, man, he's just so fucking good. He's just so fucking good.
He's really good.
I'm going Bengals at home. Give me the Bengals at home.
Oh, I gotta go Kansas City, man.
You're gonna stick to the rule.
They're just so good. How can you go? They are so good.
Bengals might be getting Jamar Chase back this week. That's
true. I mean, but this year I'm even more impressed with Patrick Mahomes to do this without Tyreek Hill.
Well, again, it goes back to what we've mentioned it a lot. It's ended up being both players made each other better.
Oh, probably. For sure. Yeah. But just his ability to spread the ball around.
It hasn't hurt him.
At all. As a matter of fact, I think he's looked better.
But you wonder, what will happen in the playoffs when you need that guy. When teams are starting to double bracket Travis Kelce, like where do you go? Because none of those receivers have really impressed me all that much.
That's fair. Well, that's the one thing I feel like we said this for years now, but I want them to have a better running game. Because even when they run the ball,
baby.
Well, no, it's not even about the talent that's back there. I don't think these guys are bums, but like, look at the run plays and the designs of it. They look like a finesse run team. It's so weird.
Yeah.
I don't even know what it's comparable to, but it's like it's like they're checking off a box. I mean, that's probably where Nagy got that from. Well, we'll run the ball 3 times this quarter and then call it a fucking day. Like, we'll just keep because that's exactly how the Chiefs run the ball. They have no rhyme or reason when they just do it just to do it every now and then, just to say they did it, and then they just pass the ball 50 times.
Still have to see him on those fucking sidelines every now and then. Just gets my blood boiling to watch. See that bald fucking head. Not that there's anything wrong with having a bald head, Frank. Sorry. Sorry. Sunday night football. Wait a minute. Hold on. The Colts get Monday night football, and then we have to watch them again on Sunday. I don't want to watch that. I don't want to watch Indianapolis.
Yeah,
and
why
Dallas.
are the Colts?
God damn, that sucks. Dallas. I'm going Dallas. Come on.
I'm going Dallas too. Yep.
Oh God, Monday night's bad too. New Orleans. Why New Orleans? Whatever. New Orleans.
I mean, that's always they're always a primetime game. The Bucs and the Saints. And even when they're good, they don't play each other good. I hate those games.
Yeah.
They're always 12-10. Yeah. Fucking ugly. And it's not like good. Do you remember the Baltimore and Steelers smash mouth fucking Palomalu, versus Ray Lewis? Like, it was 7-3, but God damn it, those hits, you heard them.
Yeah.
That's not the same type of 7-3 game that the Saints and the Buccaneers pull off.
They just play turnover football and sloppy. Yeah. And I'm going Tampa Bay. But Frank, I'm going to be honest with you. This is the most confident I felt that Brady is going to retire after the season in a very, very long time. He's done.
That's fair. Yeah.
He's done. I mean, his offensive line is in shambles. And he just doesn't look like Tom Brady anymore.
Yeah. I mean, which is still saying something because he still looks fucking good. He just doesn't look like Tom Brady.
He looks like a quarterback who could win with the 49ers.
Yeah, that's fair.
He could win with the Jets.
Yeah.
I don't think he can win with this team right now.
Maybe not. But you know who doesn't look bad? Is Rachaad White. Because that kid's a fucking baller.
He does. He looks really, really good.
But
he's also, again,
he's
you
can't go back to Leonard Fournette. No, well, that's why I don't like running backs, because you could draft him in the 6th round every single year, and he's going to be there.
Clyde
that's the whole point. You just don't. Yeah. Yeah. What are you drafting him for? Yeah. When you got Rachaad White in the 6th round of every draft, you got Khalil Herbert in the 5th of every single draft. That's what I think. That when you say I hate running backs, that's why I hate them, because they're all just as good as each other. Why are you wasting capital?
Yeah.
I'm going Bucks though. Dalton came back to earth.
Man, people really wanted that to be a thing. Are we going to see Jameis? What are the Saints doing?
Like, dude, I'm really curious when they finally start to tear that thing down. Remember, we said this 2 years ago that it's going to get ugly. They've been in the negative cap space for like 8 years, and when that's time to finally pay that bill, you thought the Bears had an awful offseason in their cap situation. They still had like $40 million in cap, which isn't a ton, or it was like 20, whatever it was. It was something low, but there's going to be an offseason where they can't spend anything. Like, it's going to be like undrafted rookies out there. Like they've kicked the can down the road so far.
We'll pick up the bill for Chris Olave. Send them whatever they need for Chris Olave, and we'll take him. We'll take him home.
I've been sort of. I hate that the Bears are out of contention already, because I've already started to think about offseason topics, and that's one of them. Like, what position players, what skill position players can be available in their given situations.
Well, we'll talk about that. We got
absolutely.
We got plenty of time. We got a bye week coming up, but before that bye week, Frank, we got a tradition as old as time. Packers week, baby.
The greatest rivalry in sports.
God damn. I really, really fucking hate that this is the time of the year that we get to play these bums. Because the Packers look beatable. More so than any other time. They look beatable week 2, and the Bears got their asses kicked, but that was before Justin Fields had figured it out, right? That was before the offense was capable of scoring 30 points. Now, we're basically in a situation where we could beat the Packers if Justin Fields would play, but we're also in the same situation where we don't really want them to beat the Packers because the second overall pick is more valuable at this point. But goddamn, if this is the last opportunity for the Bears to beat Aaron Rodgers, if this is his last game, right? You just think about that, because he's talking about his ribs and his thumb, and he's hurt, and the team sucks, and his caps, all this, and everyone thinks he's going to retire, and the bye week is next week, and the Packers may want to see Jordan Love for a few games. If this is Aaron Rodgers' final game against the Bears, goddamn, do I want them to win. And we may not get that opportunity because it's fucking Trevor. It could be Trevor Siemian back there, and it probably should be, Frank.
Yeah.
I'm going Packers. I'm going Packers with an asterisk. The big asterisk, obviously, if Justin Fields plays and he's 100%, I will expect the Bears to win that game because the Packers are fucking terrible.
But it's so hard. It's so hard for me to pick the Bears right now.
I know.
Even with Justin in, because I know it's going to be a fun loss. The defense is really bad, dude. Like,
there's some problems.
But again, that's why I harken back when it comes to Zach Wilson. Like, how far have you lost this locker room? Because you could have put up respectable numbers against this defense.
Yeah.
Or the Jets just know you're not the guy if you can't put up respectable numbers against this defense. Like, one or the other. You're getting clarity either way. Not maybe clarity. You're getting clarity if you suck. You're getting at least a confidence boost if you do good. And it's not like we don't know what Jordan Love is, but after sitting for 4 years, you have to be confident in this offense.
He made a nice throw to Christian Watson.
That's what I mean. And it's like their weapons are starting to come along a little bit. Christian Watson looks good. The running back room is the running back room. They're good if healthy.
I told you I'm playing Randall Cobb this week.
You should. He kills us anyway. And then we have no pass rush. Like,
zero.
What can we do against really any quarterback? I mean, it's. I'm going Packers as well, Jack. And it's not even that scenario where you got to prove it to me. Both teams are bad, but I think we're just a little bit worse.
The loss would actually help because it pushes the Packers potentially out of the top 10 in terms of draft picks.
That's fair as well.
So
they trade up to draft a bust.
But again, Frank, like it's that thing where it's. Yes, there's the rational answer of the Bears would hold on to that second pick, and the Packers would maybe lose their draft stat, this and that, and all the reasons why it's fine if they lose. But he's already talking shit. He's already said he's going into his favorite place and he's gonna win, and it's just like it's that primal instinct where it's just like I'm so fucking sick of this guy. And I would just love if the last time he was in a Packers uniform, potentially, if the Bears were able to beat him at home, like that would just be so great. But I know I'm totally in agreement with you that it's just not going to happen. We've seen this story so many fucking times. We thought week 2 was it, right? We're like, all right. This is where we turn the corner. And then the Packers put up their best offensive performance that they had for like 8 weeks or so. And it was, of course, it was against the Bears. Because Aaron Rodgers, this is what gets him hard.
I mean, if I'm being completely honest with you, Jack, you just seem like someone who thinks that, airplane gas can melt steel beams. And quite frankly, if we have a little more time on this podcast, I'd like to talk about lizard people living in hollow earth. You may actually know one. Her name is Nancy Pelosi, and she runs the world. Okay.
How did he go so long without us knowing?
You know what? Can I be completely honest when it comes to that?
Yeah, go for it.
That's actually really respectable. The fact that like he had these pretty wonky conspiracy beliefs. I think at some point, throughout high school, we probably believed something on that list. Those were wildly popular on YouTube, whether loosely or strongly. Something on the list where we subscribe to or like we're open to hearing and like open to be like, yeah, maybe. But you think about like now Kanye and Kyrie, and now Jaylen Brown, they can't shut the fuck up about it, and that's all they taught. Like. So he's had these nutty, and even like Jim Carrey, who just comes out every now and then to tell you that vaccines cause autism, right? Like all these conspiracies. He just shut up about it. He's like, it's just what I think. I'd like to have a good conversation. So it's like, and this isn't me sticking up for the guy, but like maybe he didn't believe all of it, but he just liked looking at conspiracy shit and he liked discussing it with his backup quarterbacks. You know what I mean? Like, okay, cool. But like he wasn't out here like pushing that. The only time COVID seemed to push him over the edge. Dude, that was where it got a little wonky.
COVID pushed a lot of people.
It did though. It really did.
It
pushed society over the edge.
Yeah.
But really it's like that's the one respectable part is like, let's say he did subscribe to these. he wasn't like bringing it up and like trying to act like mightier than everyone and like he's more knowledgeable than everyone and he knows shit you don't know.
But so, that's like, the thing that's always that's the thing that's kind of like surprised me about Aaron Rodgers. It's like in his old age, he's just basically been like, fuck it. Like at least I could respect him. Like I hated him, but I respected that he was the best quarterback alive. Like just talent wise, it wasn't even close. But now it's just like now he's also a fucking crackpot theorist and a fucking dickhead. So fuck him. But listen. These are the games that gets him going. This is what he gets off on. I have a feeling this game could be very, 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 very ugly. As like a fan of just the like what I would love to see. I'd love to see Justin Fields play. But like using my brain, just sit him. Just sit him one more week. Let him heal up. He's got the bye week after that. Give him 3 more games to close out the season. Or I guess 4 more games, right? 4 more games?
15, yes. 16, 17, 18. Yeah, 4.
18. 4 more games. Yeah, quarter left of the season. Let him play those games. But it's the Packers, man.
I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying. But again,
it's going back and forth.
It's even hard for me to think like that because I want Justin Fields to play. And I think we'd have a much better chance of winning the game. But again, it's like this defense is awful. Dude. I don't care if Jordan Love or I
want to see Allen Williams just blitz the entire game. Run your safeties.
I get it.
Who cares? Because Frank, you run cover 2, he's still gonna pick you apart.
No, I know, but it's not even Jack. It's not even about who's back there. Look at what happened when they blitzed. Who did we play before against Atlanta? Holy shit!
Marcus Mariota looked like a god.
There were cones out there. He blitzed one time. And was like, oh nah, fuck this. I can't do it.
Pull back. No. Keep blitzing. Just blitz. Do it.
I don't know, man.
I
just hope. I hope this last portion of the season we come away with at least 1 or 2 more guys that we feel that way about Jack Sanborn on either side of the ball, where we're like, okay, we can at least plug him in next year. We have to, Jack.
We're gonna with the way the season is going, Frank. I think maybe during the bye week, because I think at that point nothing else is really nobody's gonna step up. I think we've already kind of seen that. I think we're gonna have to go over our biggest disappointments for you and me personally. Like you can have yours, I can have mine, because I got a list. I there's a few. There's more than I was hoping for, but there are some big names on that list. And I would be surprised if they weren't on most Bears fans' lists as well.
I'm disappointed that the Bears didn't trade for Russell Wilson, because that's what the fuck we deserve.
We talked about this before. We talked about this, man. If that happened, and because you got to remember, before the draft, we were like all for it. We were like, oh my God, we could get Russell Wilson. And we were excited because that was the only that was the best option we had at that time. We didn't know Justin Fields was going to fall into our laps.
Yeah.
Well, he didn't even fall into our laps. Ryan Pace went out and made that happen.
He moved up like he did for everybody.
But this time it worked.
Yeah. But
1 out of 4.
Jack, I don't know if we would have a podcast if we traded for Russell Wilson. I'm dead ass serious.
No. I'm that's kind of where I was going as well. We would be fans of different teams.
It's like, or like we'd have a general NFL if we wanted to continue podcasting. I couldn't continue to make content around this team with that situation.
Do you think he'd still be doing the Mr. Unlimited thing here in Chicago? Well, what would he say? Oh, he'd be saying Bears fans bear down. That's what he'd bring that back.
Bear country, bear down.
Bear down. Yeah.
Bear town,
and
bear
he'd be
down.
Making just horrible Subway commercials.
I'm not gonna lie, Jack. One of those commercials was funny as fuck when he kept naming the different names and he had like the fucking the blindfold on and all the time. You remember that one where like there's a different name for each one? That one was actually really fucking funny to me. The rest of them were very cringe.
Let's just be glad that didn't happen, Frank. Let's be thankful. I know Thanksgiving is over, but we'll be thankful for that. But this has been the Bears with Us Bear with Us podcast. Said it wrong. I don't know why I said it wrong, but this has been the Bear with Us podcast. I'm Jack. He's Frank. We will probably. You know what? Let's put a disclaimer here. If it's Trevor Siemian again and the Packers win 40-10, we're not going to do a reaction podcast because there's just no point. If Justin Fields plays and it's a close game and it's entertaining, we'll probably get together and talk about it.
To be honest, I would say as long as Justin Fields plays, we should commit to one. Because if we get blown out and it's a lot on him, there's gonna be something to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all on Justin. So if you're listening to this, Justin, on the plane ride there, just fucking know. Not only does the game decide on you, this podcast is relying on you. We miss you, Justin. Come back.
Please come back. Give us something to talk about. But we appreciate you guys listening as always, Frank. Until next week.
Later,
Bears.
Later, everybody.